Joining us right now by Zoom chat is Josh Mercer, Communications Director at CatholicVote.org. Good morning to you, Josh.
Hey, good morning.
Praise be to God. 1 year ago today, where were you?
Actually, we had a meeting of the Catholic Vote in Chicago. We're planning ahead for the upcoming year, and we're watching everything unfold on the news, and obviously very surprised by what happened, and obviously also surprised by the reaction that the mainstream media had to it. I feel like there's a lot of Americans that are sort of like me, in which I think there's lots of people that came to that rally that wanted to participate in the rally. They were very frustrated with what they saw as irregularities in the election. And I've been inside the Capitol many times before, both, the work I do with Catholic Vote, but just as a regular citizen, bringing my kids to go see things. And you can go inside the Capitol. It's a public building. And, I think what happened with some of these people, they thought, the cops were letting them in and they could just go inside. And then things did get out of hand. And I don't know if they were outside agitators or not, or maybe they were just people that just, lost it a little bit. And it did get out of hand. I refuse this idea that it was an insurrection. I think this idea that, if somebody said yesterday, you're talking about thousands of people who are Second Amendment advocates and freedom fighters, but they bring no guns to an insurrection. I mean, of course, they're actually going in there to kill people and take it over. There were some troublemakers, though.
Yes. And
those troublemakers should face justice. I don't consider it a violent terrorist attack like Senator Cruz said yesterday.
Right.
I do think that they should face some justice. I don't think they should be, as your friend mentioned on the news there are some people that are kind of rotting away in jail. And, is this the deep state's way of just trying to punish people? I mean, it's like, they're still human beings, give them the justice they deserve, but, treat them with the respect. I mean, it's like, it kind of cracks me up. Just yesterday, we hear about the Biden administration going to have this new executive order where they're going to treat prisoners who are super violent men who identify as women, and they can go into,
I saw that article,
a women's prison. Right. It's like, you're going to treat these people who deserve justice and they deserve penalties, of course, if they've, punched police officers and stuff like that. I'm not trying to deny that.
Well, how about the increase in violent crime and even murder from criminals who have been released from jail this past year because of the wave of attorneys generals around the country who have gone soft on crime? In Harris County in Texas alone, 150 cases of murder as a result of that. Let that sink in.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm sure you saw the news item this week with the new district attorney in New York City, who said he's basically not going to, he and his team are not going to prosecute a whole slew of crimes. You basically has to be homicide at this point, for you to get prosecuted in New York City. It's horrible. And the thing is, a lot of these district attorneys, they try to make it sound like they're woke, or they care more about different people and different races, but it's not true at all. I mean, because Hispanics, blacks,
it's the minorities who are going to suffer the most.
They don't want this at all.
Yeah, they're going to suffer the most in those neighborhoods. That's where the violent crime happens most, is in those inner city neighborhoods where minorities tend to be the dominant factor, and they are going to suffer quite a bit. And it's a sad thing, which brings up, we have a couple of minutes before we go to break, but the midterms are fast approaching this year. That's going to be a hot topic all the way till November. But I think the left is going to use today as an opportunity to do their best to hedge the risks that they think they're facing in November. What say you?
It's funny. They love January 6th because it's the one day they get to become patriots and say Republicans and conservatives are anti-patriotic and evil, even though they rioted all during this summer of 2020. But just being honest from a handicap standpoint, okay? I remember hearing conservatives saying, we're going to ride Benghazi, we're going to talk about the scandal, and we're going to win because it's so horrible. And I tell them, I'm sorry, it just doesn't work that way. The American people vote on a lot of different issues. And so I would say to Democrats, you think you're going to ride January 6th to a re-election to help you win the House and Senate again? No way. People are looking at the price of gas, the price of beef, as you mentioned in the radio thing, and they're thinking about the Afghan debacle. That's when Biden's numbers just took a dive and they haven't returned. He's underwater. He's at like 35-40% for a long time. The Democrats are on pace to lose the Senate and the House in a big way, and they're not going to be able to use today to turn it around. Not with inflation, not with the embarrassment of the Afghanistan withdrawal, not with rising prices. They are in a world of hurt, and they have the slimmest of majorities. You have the slimmest majority in the Senate. You have 50-50, and they only need to lose 5 seats in the House, and they lose it. They need a miracle to turn it around, and they're running out of time.
The Build Back Better bill, I can't believe Manchin has shelved that. No deals have been struck, and he gave into it. Do you see that coming back at all in 2022?
I mean, if it does, it's going to be a very trimmed down version of what it was before. I mean, they may expand the child care tax credit again, but they will probably make sure that the parents are working in order to get the credit. They might do some other spending as well, but I really do think if they do it, all the stars have to align, and they basically have to say, all right, Manchin, what are your terms? Because he's the president right now, honestly. He's setting the agenda in the Senate.
Did you see that interview clip between, the quote, Charlemagne the God and Kamala Harris? They were quibbling over that very statement.
Oh, my gosh, yeah. I mean, they're so frustrated. And it's like, and I like to tell people, like, she ran for president and she quit before the first race. She's just that toxic, Kamala Harris. She's not energetic. People don't rally behind her. And I like to tell people this. The New Hampshire primary was a year ago in February. Joe Biden got 5th place with like 8%. And what happened after that? This is before everything went totally crazy, right? 2 years ago, obviously. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But Pelosi and the Democrats were totally freaked that Bernie Sanders was going to be the nominee and they were going to lose everything. And so they picked up Joe Biden off the floor and carried him over the line in South Carolina. He is just, he's totally a puppet.
He's received more votes than Obama, Josh.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. How is that? It still begs the question. It's interesting because when a year ago we were talking about the January 6th issue, and we had people commenting on the show that, when we say that there were shenanigans in the vote, oh, come on, you're just mad that he lost. And I think the reality is, how could you not come to these conclusions? And ultimately, I think Ken Paxton said it best in our interview with him in the last segment. He said Biden should want to know whether or not he won fair and square. Every American should want to know. You want a fair and square system, irregardless of your political bent there.
Well, there's no question that you want a clean elections and stuff like that. I think the thing is, there were some conservatives that criticized the election results. I think that were just frustrations and they weren't legitimate. And there's others that were. So in other words,
hold that thought, Josh.
Hey, good morning. I'd be remiss if I didn't tell people to sign up for The Loop, our daily free email newsletter.
We get it.
Yeah, we love it.
Yeah, praise be to God. Thanks for doing that. So January 6th was definitely a big issue today, but nuking the filibuster, is that a good idea? Also, stacking the deck at the Supreme Court. What are your thoughts on those two issues?
The thing is, if they wanted to nuke the filibuster, they should have done it within the first month or two after Biden won the election. Because the fact is, you're waiting way too long to try to do it. And by the time if you did actually nuke it, which I don't think they will, because I think Manchin and Sinema aren't going to go for it. But if you did actually finally convince those two to say yes to it, you're running out of time. I mean, there's literally the amount of time that's left in the legislative year is going to be dwindling. Harry Reid nuked the filibuster for judicial nominations, but he ended up doing it like in November of like 2013, and so he had like a year to use it, right? And then the Republicans took the Senate back and they basically put the brakes on every judicial nomination anyway. So the thing is, like, if they ever got around to doing it, I don't think they will, but they would end up shooting themselves in the foot, because then Republicans would take the Senate and it wouldn't matter anyway. And then if Republicans win the presidential election next time, then they'll be there with the Republican president, Republican Senate, and they'll pass legislation that's pro-gun, pro-life all throughout the entire country. So it would be a foolish mistake. I don't think they're going to have the votes to do it.
So are you what's your take on the stacking of the Supreme Court? Do you think that is something that is going to happen anytime soon?
Yeah, I also think, I mean, again, that's why we joke he's President Manchin. I just don't think Joe Manchin's going to go for it. I don't think so. I mean, the thing is, Manchin is a wheeler. He's a dealer. He's much more likely to pass a different version of Build Back Better than he ever is to pass election reform that has zero support of Republicans or stacking the Supreme Court. I honestly think, you know, when President Franklin Roosevelt tried it, he was the most. I don't like FDR a lot, but the guy had absolute political talent. He was like beyond once in a generation, once in a century. I mean, he got elected 4 times, right? And even he couldn't pull it off with as big of a margins he had in Congress. And Joe Biden's sitting there, he's pretending like he's LBJ or FDR with these huge majorities with this ambitious agenda. And he's got a 50-50 Senate. He's got a 5-seat majority in the House. You've got no margin for error. And they're trying to it's like having a tiny, tiny snake not just swallow a pig, but like swallow an elephant. I mean, you can't do it.
Is it possible that their love for abortion is so great that they're willing, that if they don't get anything else done, they got to get this done? They've got to ensure that Roe v. Wade is not overturned. So they're willing to throw everything out the window to just try to accomplish that. Is that one way to look at this?
Possibly, but I mean, like if they try, like if Biden tries to put through some sort of executive order after Dobbs, like saying we're not going to enforce this or we're not going to do this, I think the Supreme Court slaps that down anyway. So, I mean, I know they're abortion obsessed, but again, Manchin so far has really been putting the brakes on a lot of their excessive agenda. I'm not trying to say he's the best thing in the world. I mean, he likes funding Planned Parenthood. He's not with us 100%, but I am very happy with how he said no on a lot of these more extreme measures.
Well, that's definitely a good story. I wanted to see, what are some stories that you think are a silver lining going into 2022?
Well, I mean, pardon me. I think I do have Omicron, by the way. So that's not a silver lining for the immediate future. No, actually, to use that, though, I do think, for example, the pandemic in so many portions of the country, like the beautiful Commonwealth of Kentucky, like I live in rural Michigan, there are people that are still suffering, of course, but the Omicron is much, much milder than other ones. I do see light at the end of the tunnel for a lot of people. Unfortunately, I think people who live in blue cities, they've reached this sort of, fervor about, COVID. They're so paranoid, and they just shut down all the schools in Chicago. So if there's a silver lining, it would be that regular everyday Americans that are, blue collar, of all stripes, stand up to these teachers unions and say, no, we're not going to go for this. I do think there's going to be some really good, healthy pushback against some of these more extreme measures. It's going to take a while, but the first chance you get to see elections on some of these places where, there's going to be great pushback. So I look forward to that. I think it's going to be a good year.
One thing that I think we kind of miss, and whenever we're talking about this, and we have this conversation with my roommate all the time, we have a discussion, and he's very into looking at things from the political realm, and all I care about is the faith, and so we have this discussion, and we go back and forth on it, and Michael Knowles tweeted this out yesterday, and I thought it was hilarious because it got everyone riled up, especially people who are not Catholic and do not have a Catholic vision of the world. He tweeted, "On January 6th, we remember the wise men who traveled a great distance for their leader, the true leader of us all, defying an unjust government along the way, a glorious event." And of course, everyone had a conniption, was freaking out, like, how dare you say that? Not realizing we're talking about the Epiphany. So looking at the Epiphany in relation to January 6th and looking at the cultural landscape, the political landscape from a faith perspective, what can we see here?
Well, I mean, Andrea Baer, Picchiotti in the National Catholic Register had an article today. We linked it in the loop, and she made a good point, just kind of looking over all the different aspects. For example, religious liberty, that's a big issue, obviously still for us today and this year. That she said, there's a lot of important issues. We do have the opportunity to make some wins on these. There's the transgender mandate that, trying to force Catholic hospitals to perform surgeries that go against their faith. We have no president anymore that will back us up on this. In fact, he's doing damage on this, unfortunately. But we do have a lot of we've done a lot of reforming of the courts, and the Supreme Court is not perfect, but it has been pretty good for religious liberty. And I do look forward to hopefully some more victories on that front, especially now that you have a 6-3 court, or is it really a 5-4 or 5-3-1 court? You never know what Roberts is going to do, but
right.
We do have that protection, that stopgap on religious freedom. So that's very important.
Josh Mercer is our guest. He's communications director over at CatholicVote.org. We have a few minutes left with you. I want to go back to the midterms again. So we have record inflation. We have become energy dependent again. 200,000 arrests on our southern border. Fentanyl coming across like crazy now. Crime and violence going through the roof in our major cities. Foreign wars are back on the agenda. The threat of Putin invading the Ukraine or Taiwan being invaded by communist China. I mean, it's just it seems like a lot of pressures out there on the average American people. But my question to you is, when it comes to the midterm vote, do you think that those independents will vote more conservative? But more importantly, what about liberals? Do you think liberals are starting to depart from that sort of mainline liberal agenda and might vote more conservative this midterm?
So the biggest thing I would like to say is, if you look at the election stories of the last 10 years or so, there's a constant theme. It's no. Okay? So 2010, Barack Obama midterms, Americans said no. 2012, they were frustrated that there wasn't a Republican that could really counter Obama, and people stayed home. 2016, 2018, 2020, 2022, I think all of these are going to be no elections. Okay. So the American people are going to be frustrated that the pandemic, they promised, they voted for this guy and he would, shut down the virus, not the economy, and that it's still lingering. It's like, they're going to be frustrated. There's a lot of things to be frustrated about. I think you're going to see a pretty loud no. Our focus with Catholic Vote is going to be on those, Catholic senators and congressmen who claim to be Catholic, but support abortion. You think about the senator from Arizona, Mark Kelly, Catholic, supports abortion. The senator from Nevada, Catherine Cortez Masto, claims to be Catholic, supports abortion. And you know what? I'm going to be bipartisan about this, because unfortunately, Lisa Murkowski, she's a Republican, right? She's up in Alaska. She's Catholic, supports abortion.
Yeah.
So we're going to target her.
What about those governors? I mean, the governor of New York, she's Catholic, supports abortion, and she's not alone. There's others. But we have just a couple minutes left. Trump is it looks like he's about to announce his candidacy for the 2024 election to run for president again. But there's talk about Hillary Clinton running again. What are your thoughts about that? You got about a minute.
I think Trump would be ecstatic if Hillary ran again and replaced Biden on the ticket, because that would probably ensure him winning again. I do think Ron DeSantis is a strong candidate on the Republican side, but ultimately, if the Supreme Court gives a victory for the pro-life cause on Dobbs, that'll have been the biggest political victory on the Republican side in decades. It'll be so easy for Trump to say, I did that, and that would probably get him the nomination again. If we had a Trump-Hillary redux, I think he wins again.
Wow. It's going to be interesting, isn't it? If it wasn't for all the suffering the people are going to have to endure in the meantime. But at any rate, we're very grateful to you, Josh Mercer, Communications Director at CatholicVote.org, for being our guest today. And I would encourage everyone to sign up for The Loop. We get it here. We love it here. Go to CatholicVote.org/GetLoop, and you'll find the way to join that. So, Josh Mercer, God bless you. God love you. Have a great day, sir.
All right, thanks, guys. Happy Epiphany.
Happy Epiphany to you, too. That is going to do it for the first hour of Catholic Drive Time.